Book of Heaven, Volume 4. 24th to the 31st of December 1902. Page 162 to 168. December 24, 1902. Effects of sufferings. The value of pride. Continuing in my usual state, I found myself outside of myself, and I found our Lord, who had a cross near him, which was all braided with thorns. He took it and placed it upon my shoulders, commanding me to carry it into the midst of a multitude of people, to give proof of his mercy and to placate divine justice. It was so heavy that I carried it bent over and almost dragging myself. While I was carrying it, Jesus disappeared, and as I reached a certain place, the one who was guiding me told me, "Leave the cross and remove your clothes, for our Lord is coming back and he must find you ready for the crucifixion." I removed my clothes, but I kept them in my hands because of the embarrassment my nature felt, and I said to myself, "I will drop them as soon as he comes." At that moment he came back, and finding me with my clothes in my hands, told me, "You have not even let yourself be found completely stripped so that I might crucify you immediately. Well then, we will leave it for another time." I remained confused and afflicted, unable to articulate a word, and Jesus, to console me, took me by the hand and told me, "Tell me, what do you want me to give you?" And I, "Lord, suffering." And he, "And what else?" And I can ask of you nothing but suffering." And Jesus, "And what about love, don't you want some?" And I, "No, suffering, because in giving me suffering you will give me more love." I know this out of experience, that in order to obtain graces, the strongest love and all of you, these cannot be obtained but through suffering, and in order to earn all your sympathies, delights and satisfactions, the only and sole means is to suffer for love of you. And he, "My beloved, I wanted to test you so as to ignite in you more the desire to suffer for love of me." After this, I saw people who believed themselves to be something greater than others, and blessed Jesus said, "My daughter, one who believes himself to be something before me and before men, is worth nothing. One who believes himself to be nothing is worth everything. First, before me, because if he does something, he does not think he does it because he can do it, having the strength and the capacity, but rather, because he receives from God the grace, the helps and the lights. Therefore it can be said that he does it by virtue of divine power, and one who has divine power with him is already worth everything. Second, before men, because this acting by virtue of divine power makes him operate in a completely different way, and he does nothing but send forth the light of the divine power he contains within himself, in such a way that the most perverted ones, without wanting it, feel the strength of this light and submit to his volition, and here is how he is worth everything also before men. On the contrary, one who believes himself to be something, in addition to being worth nothing, is abominable to my presence, and because of his ostentatious and particular manners, for he believes he is something and makes fun of others, men keep him pointed out as an object of derision and of persecution. December 26, 1902. Calumnies, persecutions and contrasts serve to justify man. As I was in my usual state, I felt all oppressed and with a fear of receiving persecutions, contrasts, calumnies, not only to myself, for I do not care about myself because I am a poor creature who is worth nothing, but to the confessor and other priests. So I felt my heart crushed by this weight, unable to find respite. In the meantime my adorable Jesus came, telling me, "My daughter, why be disturbed and restless, and waste time with this? As for your things, there is nothing there, and besides, everything is divine providence that allows calumnies, persecutions and contrasts in order to justify man and to make him come back to union with his Creator, one-on-one, without human support, just as he came out when he was created. As good and holy as a man may be, he always keeps something of the human spirit in his interior, and also in his exterior he is not perfectly free. He always keeps something human for which he hopes, on which he relies and leans, and through which he wants to obtain esteem and respect. But, let the wind of calumnies, persecutions and contrasts come about a little bit. Oh, what a devastating hail the human spirit receives! In fact, seeing himself opposed, unpopular, despised by creatures, man no longer finds satisfaction among them. On the contrary, helps, supports, trust and esteem fail him altogether, and if before he used to go in search of them, afterwards he himself shuns them, because wherever he turns he finds nothing but bitternesses and thorns. So, reduced to this state, he remains alone. But man cannot be, nor is he made to be alone. What will the poor little one do? He will turn to his center, God, completely and without the slightest hindrance. God will give himself completely to him, and man will give himself completely to God, applying his intellect to knowing him, his memory to remembering God and his benefits, his will to loving him. And so, my daughter, here is man justified, sanctified, and the purpose for which he was created restored within his soul. And even if later on he has to deal with creatures and he sees helps, supports and esteem being offered to him, he receives them with indifference, knowing what they are from his experience, and if he makes use of them, he does it only when he sees the honor and the glory of God, but what remains is always God and himself alone. December 30, 1902. One act contrary to the divine will is sufficient to destroy the work of Jesus in the soul. As I was in my usual state, I seemed to see the most holy Trinity, as if they wanted to resolve what they should do with the world, and I was in their midst. It seemed that they were saying, if most fierce scourges are not sent to the world, everything is over for it concerning religion, and they will become worse than barbarians themselves. And while they were saying this, it seemed that wars of every kind, earthquakes destroying entire cities and diseases were coming down upon earth. On seeing this, all trembling, I said, Supreme Majesty, forgive the human ingratitude. Now more than ever the heart of man has rebelled, but if man sees himself being mortified he will rebel even more, adding outrages upon outrages against your Majesty. And a voice coming from their midst said, man can rebel when he is merely mortified, but when he is destroyed his rebellion ceases. Here we speak not of mortification, but of destruction. After this, they disappeared, but who can say how I was left? More so, since I felt as though a disposition for wanting to go out of this state of suffering, and a will not perfectly conformed to the divine volition. I could see with clarity that the ugliest offense that the creature can give to the Creator is to oppose his most holy will. I felt pain for this, and I greatly feared I might be doing an act contrary to his will, but in spite of this I could not quiet myself. Then, after I struggled very much, my adorable Jesus came back and told me, my daughter, many times I delight in choosing souls, surrounding them with divine fortitude in such a way that no enemy may enter into them. I establish in them my perpetual dwelling, and in this residence of mine I lower myself, one could say, to the most minute services. I clean her up, I pull out all thorns from her, I destroy all the evil that the human nature has produced in her, and I plant in her all the beautiful and good things that can be found in me, to the extent of forming the most beautiful garden of my delights, to be used at my pleasure and according to the circumstances of my glory and of the good of others. So much so, that it can be said that she no longer has anything of her own, but serves only as my dwelling. Now, do you know what it takes to destroy all this? One act contrary to my will, and if you oppose my will you will do all this. And I, Lord, I fear that my superiors may give me the obedience of the other time. And he, this is not your business, I myself will deal with them, but your will is not present here. In spite of this I could not calm down, and I kept repeating in my interior, what a dismal change has taken place in me. Who has separated my will from the will of my God, which seemed to be one? December 31, 1902. The victim soul is greatly loved by Jesus, but sometimes is nauseating to him, because her exterior appears before divine justice as covered with the sins of others. Continuing to be with a fear that I might oppose the will of my adorable Jesus, I was feeling all oppressed and distressed, and I prayed him to free me, saying, Lord, have pity on me. Don't you see the danger I am in? How is it possible that I, most wretched little worm, dare so much as to feel myself opposed to your holy will? And besides, what good can I possibly find, and into what abyss will I plunge myself if I am separated from your will? While I was saying this, blessed Jesus moved in my interior, and through a light that he sent me, he seemed to say to me, "You never understand anything. This state is state of victim. When they offered you as victim for Corrado, you accepted. Now, what is the evil present in Corrado? Is there perhaps not rebellion of the creature against the Creator, between priests and secular, and among parties? Now, your unwanted state of rebellion, your fear, your pains, are an expiatory state, and this state of expiation I myself suffered in Gethsemane, as I reached the point of saying, 'If it is possible, let this chalice pass from me. Yet, not my will but yours be done,' while I had so much yearned for it during the whole course of my life, to the point of feeling consumed. On hearing this, it seemed I regained tranquility and strength, and I prayed him to pour his bitternesses into me. I drew close to his mouth, but as much as I sucked up, nothing would come out, only a most bitter breath that embittered my whole interior. So, seeing that he was not pouring anything, I said, 'Lord, you don't love me any more. Bitternesses you do not want to pour your sweetnesses at least.' And he, 'Quite the opposite, I love you more. And if you were able to enter into my interior, you would see with clarity, in all of my parts, distinct love toward you. Sometimes I love you so much that I reach the point of loving you as much as I love myself, although some other times I cannot look at you and you are nauseating to me.'" What a thunderbolt these last words were for my poor heart! To think that I was not always loved by my loving Jesus, and that I reached the point of being an abominable soul. Had he not himself run to explain to me the meaning of this, I could not have survived. So he added, "Poor daughter, is this very hard for you? You have encountered my same lot. I was always who I was, one with the sacrosanct Trinity, and we loved one another with eternal, indissoluble love. Yet, as victim, covered with all the iniquities of men, my exterior was abominable before the divinity, so much so, that divine justice spared no part of me, rendering itself inexorable to the point of abandoning me. You are always who you are with me, but since you occupy the state of victim, your exterior appears before divine justice as covered with the sins of others. This is why I spoke those words to you. You, however, calm yourself, because I love you always." Having said this, he disappeared. It seems that this time blessed Jesus wants to make me upset, though he immediately gives me peace. May he be always blessed and thanked.